Good afternoon, everyone. The program will begin in a few minutes. We are currently live streaming this Zoom session on our Facebook page. So with this, we would like to ask everyone to keep their mics mute while waiting for the program to start. Again, we're currently live streaming this on our Facebook page, so please make sure to keep your mics on mute. Thank you.
Unmute mo yung sarili mo. So,
dapat employee development po.
Kaya, ay, minute mo. Ibig sabihin, nagkasalita ka.
Good afternoon, everyone. We will now begin with the program. May we request everyone to keep their mics on mute in preparation for the Philippine National Anthem.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Are we? Is the Lupang Hinirang done? I'm sorry, my sound was bad. Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
We can hear you.
What is it? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Are we going to repeat the national anthem?
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng
Something's going
Pilipinas.
on with my computer, so
Kayang mag-ibig, pero sa silanganan, alam ng puso, sa litig mo'y
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining Kamayan para sa Kalikasan Forum. Let's quiet our minds for the opening prayer to be led by Cyrus Ogorida, Director, GAD and Sustainable Program, Aksyon Kalikasan, Philippines.
Good afternoon, everyone. Please bow our head and let us feel the presence of our Lord Jesus Christ. Name the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord God, maraming salamat po sa araw na ito. Binigyan niyo po kami ng kalakasan, binigyan niyo po kami ng pagkakataon upang kami magkatipon-tipon, upang mapag-usapan natin, Lord, on how are we going to preserve and conserve our environment. Thank you, Lord God, sa magandang araw na ito, O God. Salamat, Lord, sa pagkakaisa ng aming kaisipan, O God, para magkaroon ng magandang output ang aming forum. Lord, salamat po sa bawat isa. Thank you, Lord God. Salamat po sa biyaya na palagi niyo po sa aming binibigay, sa kalakasan, O God. Binigyan niyo po kami, God, ng buhay, Lord. Napakaganda. Thank you, Lord. Salamat po at nagkaroon kami ng kaisipan, O God, na i-preserve at i-conserve ang iyong creation, O God. This is a very wonderful creation that you've created for us. Thank you, Lord God, for this great opportunity. Now, O God, magkaisa kami at ang aming prinsipyo at aming obheto at aming pakay sa ngayong hapon nito, Lord God, ay para sa iyo, para sa kalikasan. Maraming salamat po. Ang lahat po ito binabalik namin sa matamis na pangalan ni Jesus. Amen. Thank you. Father, Son,
Maraming
Lord,
salamat.
Amen.
Yes, maraming salamat, Cyrus Ogorida, sa napakagandang panalangin. Isang mainit na pagbati at pagtanggap sa inyong lahat. Welcome to the 368th Kamayan para sa Kalikasan Forum, the longest-running environmental forum in the Philippines. This forum has been held every third Friday of the month since March 1990. Next month, we shall be celebrating our 31st anniversary. For the past 8 years, since the responsibility was entrusted to them by its original founders, this forum has been brought to you by Green Convergence, or GC for short, and Kamayan Restaurant, the forum's original and longtime partner. For everyone's information, we are currently live streaming at the GC Facebook page, and the video recording will be uploaded to the GC website and GC YouTube channel for later viewing. I am Marie Marciano, your forum moderator, and I'm happy to introduce to you my co-moderator, who is the Executive Director of the Environmental Studies Institute of Miriam College and the Vice President of Green Convergence, Dr. Carlo Garcia. Good afternoon, Carlo.
Good afternoon, Marie. By the way, Marie is the immediate past Vice President of Green Convergence. You know, Marie, I never thought I would become a mainstay here. I am indeed an accidental moderator, but it feels good. Marie, I have a question before we start.
Yeah,
How
what is
old
it?
were you when you became politically and or environmentally woke? Ako kasi, I was 16 years old when I first joined a big multi-sectoral rally.
Wow! Ang bata mo pa!
Yes. And after that, you know, the rest is history. What about you, Marie?
Ako, well, maaga ako nag-asawa eh. Pero you know, pero when I was in college, I was already very politically motivated. I was a working student. I was a DJ in a radio station in Baguio, and yun, namulat ako. We would go cover political events. Tapos pati yung overnight mga counting of ballots, mga ganyan. Alam mo, so that was the beginning. Pero I didn't start at 16, ha? You were so young.
Okay,
Pero youth pa din ako nung nagsimula ako.
yeah.
But, you know, I
started young, no? I think a lot of us started young, right?
That's right. Yeah.
How I wish we have the space to talk about our own experiences probably next time, no?
That's right. You know, it would be so nice yung mga veterans in the environment movement. Yes.
Veteran.
That's a great idea, Carlo.
Right. But for today, we will listen to the narratives of 4 young people who, at their young age, are already contributing significantly for the environment and for the society.
That's right. Nakakatuwa, di ba? It makes me hope. Parang nabubuhay yung pag-asa sa puso ko that there will be
with that.
More tomorrows, especially for my grandchildren. Wow. Okay, so
we can start now.
Yes, moving on. Let's hear the opening remarks of the President of Green Convergence, Dr. Nina Galang.
Good afternoon, everyone. I cannot say isang mainit na pagbati dahil malamig ngayon. Climate change talaga. We never thought that by Ash Wednesday, malamig pa. Anyway, maaga naman kasi ang Ash Wednesday today. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Carlo and Marie, our able moderators all the time. When we were young, I seem to be saying that phrase more and more these days. When we were young, the dictum was, children should be seen, not heard. So we would just have to sit listening to the adult conversation and just soak in everything that was said. But we were not to give our own opinions. Thankfully, that attitude has changed. And I think the thinking now is that at every age, everyone has a perspective that will contribute to to everyone's learning. And actually, if you think about it, toddlers are nearer to the floor than we are, and they probably see things that we don't. And when we were toddlers, we were curious to examine each and every crack on the floor, the grains of the wood and floor, etc. And so this forum today is very relevant. You all know the song, "It's a Wonderful World." One line there says, "I see babies cry, I watch them grow, they'll know much more than I'll ever know." And I believe that the youth of today, besides being able to experience more with less strictures in their movements, they have the whole wide world web at their disposal, and they know how to use it. Each portal opening another portal and another portal and another portal. And the knowledge they can gain is limitless, and they do know how to access that. And altogether, they form their own conclusions, insights, wisdom. And I'm really quite heartened that in the past few meetings that I've been attending in the past few weeks, there were youth, and really their contributions made the conversation so much richer. And so I'm very glad that from the looks of it, from the attendees, there are many young people here. Again, also to listen and contribute their own realities. So, like Marie, I'm hopeful. It sounds condescending, but I know that the young ones of today are concerned, and many of them are concerned about the environment, the world they will manage and lead soon, and they're contributing to now already. So I know that we're going to have a wonderful forum. So thank you everyone for coming. I thank Shafi especially because, well, she's also among the youth, and she really was the one who organized the speakers today. So let's all have a good session. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Nina. Oof, I'm having a problem with my computer. So um, anyway, this is the time to give my usual spiel about how we're going to do the forum. Sawang-sawa na yung mga regulars dito, but we have to keep giving it every time because there are always new attendees. So briefly, the forum is divided. The major features of the forum are divided into three parts. The first part is when we listen to the presentations of our resource speakers. All of them, we are not going to ask any questions. We're not going to open the floor for questions. We listen to them one after the other. And what you can do is to write down your questions if you have any so that you don't forget them. And you can ask them on the second portion, which is the open forum. That's when we take all the questions and questions lang muna, hindi pa sasagutin, okay? And then those questions will be answered in the third portion. That's part 3. So the second portion, we are going to ask the resource speakers to write down the names of the questioners and their questions para hindi naman makalimutan nila na sagutin, no? So marami, but this is the most efficient way in the almost 31 years that we've done this para maraming makapagtanong, no? So that there will be no debates, all the questions, many questions can be answered. So it's time efficient. So I hope that's clear. No questions on the first part, all questions on the second part, and all answers on the third part. Thank you. And meron pang ibang guidelines si Carlo. Dr. Carlo.
Well, I know that you know this already, but it is always good to be reminded. To avoid distracting ambient noise, all participants are auto-muted for the duration of the webinar, except, of course, during the open forum, when the participants are welcome to speak and ask questions. Detailed guidelines will be given at the start of the open forum so that no one will forget. Meanwhile, you may use the chat box for comments and reactions. And in case you have questions, you may write them already in the chat box, but we will only entertain them during the open forum. At this point, allow me to acknowledge the presence of Junior Chamber International Cebu through attorney New. I wasn't able to get the full name through attorney Edisa. Later, we will acknowledge the schools, religious groups, government and NGOs, and other groups that are represented here. Back to you, Marie.
Yes, ang daming-dami natin from all over the country. At saka, hindi lang sila nandito ngayon because we also have viewers sa Facebook and we will have many more viewers sa ating webpage where it will be, this session will be uploaded like the other sessions. Okay, maraming salamat, Carlo. Ready na tayo ngayon for part 1 of Kamayan Forum. Our first speaker graduated from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, with a bachelor's degree in mathematics. She is the convener and international spokesperson of Youth Advocates for Climate Action Philippines, or YACAP, and the Fridays for Future, or FFF, of the Philippines. She is also active in FFF International, advocating for climate justice and making sure that voices of most affected peoples and areas, or MAPAs, strikers, are heard. To give us a picture of climate activism by the youth, let us welcome Mitzi Jonelle Tan.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for that very warm introduction. Let me just share my slides. Oh, hold on. Wrong set of slides. Is it sharing?
Yes, it was, I think.
Oh, okay, hold on. One last. Lagi ka natanaw, when it comes to Zoom, there's always something that goes wrong, but we always push forward because this is how organizing and activism also looks like in the time
There
of
it
a pandemic.
goes. There it is. It's sharing.
Did it present? Is it like
Yes,
full
it
screen?
says
Okay.
YACAP orientation. Okay.
So I was asked to talk about my organization and our experiences, but before I really dive into the experiences of YACAP and our activism, we just wanted to give like a very brief introduction that the reason why we started doing this. So we saw that a disaster is looming. There is a deadline of 10 years by 2030, and some scientists say it even earlier, set by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, to cut the global carbon dioxide emissions in half in order to prevent further global temperature increase. If not prevented, the disasters brought upon by climate change will then bring forth the start of global destruction. And people keep telling us that this is alarmist and we're overreacting, but this is the truth, that if we don't start acting, the Philippines, we are the fourth most vulnerable country to the climate crisis in the past decade. We will be impacted by this drastically, and it is end of the world levels, and we need to start taking that seriously. And for some reason, a lot of people, a lot of adults especially, think that the deadline of 10 years isn't as serious as it is. Maybe because they haven't been in school for so long, so they don't realize na kapag deadline na talaga, kailangan makinig sa teacher. And that's what the scientists are saying. The deadline is coming and we need to start acting now. If you have a homework that's due, a big homework that's due next week, you're not going to start the night before. You're supposed to start before it, well prepared, depends on how difficult the situation is. And this is a very difficult situation, so we need to start today. And because of this, the youth have taken action. We're seeing across the world in 2019, that's when you really started seeing the global climate strikes coming up. But if you notice, the Philippines and a lot of countries that are more impacted by the climate crisis, the global south, hindi pa siya ganun kalakas because aside from the climate crisis being one of our barriers, climate education is also a big barrier in our countries. So a lot of what YACAP would do is actually raising awareness about the climate crisis. This was us during the first climate strike. And then in 2019, we realized that there needed to be an alliance of individuals, youth organizations, and student councils and advocates for immediate global action led by the youth. We needed a broad alliance. We needed as many people as we could get. We need a big organization, just making sure that we're focusing on the climate. We have 5 points of unity: climate justice, which basically shows that even if we know we are all responsible for the climate crisis, even though we are all contribute to the crisis at hand, there is there are countries, there are people who are more responsible. If you look, the Philippines only contributes less than 0.4% to carbon dioxide emissions, yet we are the fourth most vulnerable country. And it's the same in so many countries where they don't contribute so much to the climate crisis, but they are the ones most impacted. And if you look at who isn't as impacted, they're the ones who are contributing the most. Urgency of climate action. Again, there is a ticking time bomb and we need to act as soon as possible. Youth-led collective action. So it says youth-led, hindi youth lang. So we need everyone with us, especially those most vulnerable. When we say youth-led, we basically mean that the youth will inherit the planet, and we do not accept inheriting a dead planet. The Filipino youth, we will stand united with the multi-sectoral struggle for the survival of our species, and we are joining those who have led this struggle for so long already, our indigenous peoples, our farmers, our fishing communities. They are the ones who are our environmental defenders. And speaking of that, the next point is the defense of our environmental defenders. All over the world, there has been an increase in the slaying of environmental defenders, and they've suffered thousands of human rights violations. In demanding for climate justice, we must also demand for justice for our environmental defenders, our fishing communities, our farmers, our indigenous peoples. The Philippines is the second most dangerous country in the world for environmental defenders, and we have to stand united with them in their struggle for justice. And it's not just environmental defenders, it's also environmental activists. We have NGOs that we've worked with who've been called terrorists, who've had death threats, all for protecting the environment. I myself have received death threats on social media just because we were calling out the president for his ignorance and we were calling for accountability last November when we had all those typhoons happening in the Philippines. And what they would say was that I was a terrorist, and so I didn't deserve to be helped during the typhoon. And that doesn't make sense because everyone deserves to be helped during a typhoon. And also, ano namang, how is calling for accountability and justice terrorism? A few months ago, no, this is last year pa pala, Lieutenant General Parlade actually said on media that, it's on Manila Times if you guys check, that young girls wearing short shorts calling for the protection of the environment are doing it to entice young men to join the rebel army. And the mental gymnastics that had to happen for him to say young girls, short shorts, you know, the sexism is thick there. And then you say that because they're calling for the protection of the environment, they're terrorists. And it's crazy because I am a young girl who wears short shorts and calls for the protection of the environment. And when we were demanding for justice last November, you could see the comments in the social media posts. They were saying, "Oh, you don't deserve help because you're wearing short shorts," or like, "Oh, sige, mag short shorts ka pa." And you can see that rotten, misogynistic, backwards thinking is seeping into the people, and that's what we're trying to change. And that's why we need systemic change, because the problems that we're facing, it is so ingrained in our system. It is a systemic problem, so we need systemic solutions. The wasteful, profit-oriented global system does not work anymore. We are so dependent on the fossil fuel industry, and that is a dying industry that literally needs to be left in the ground. And we need to stop and move forward. And when we do have development, it has to be development that doesn't leave anyone behind. So what have we been doing to achieve these points of unities? In September 2019, we held the global climate strike here in the Philippines. We had over 600 people. At that time, it was the biggest climate strike that we ever had. We set a world record of forming the largest human Earth formation. The week after, also YACAP held a protest in Batangas with 3,000 people. So na-break agad yung initial record, pero YACAP still holds that record in the Philippines. In November, we did Pailaw para sa Kalikasan, where we were joined by our workers, our indigenous peoples, and different sectors of society, because again, we really believe that climate justice has to be with the people who are most impacted by the climate crisis, and they have to lead with us. a lot of what we do again is going to universities and asking people, like literally knocking at the doors of classrooms and saying, hello po, can we have like 5 minutes of your time so that we can talk about the climate crisis, invite students outside of class to come and discuss about the climate crisis and really just raise awareness about climate justice. Come the pandemic, we saw the need to unite with our fishing communities and our environmental defenders in different ways. Also, the economic lockdowns were very difficult, so we did relief drives, we did webinars, we did more webinars, and also in April to September, I think, we launched the Junk Terror Law campaign where Greta Thunberg, Naomi Klein, Nemo Bassi, they supported our campaign and our petition, because we recognize that if our democracy and our freedom of speech is being attacked, then we can't call for climate justice. If you look at the law of the anti-terror law, it actually says that system change can fall under the definition of terrorism. And that's exactly what's so difficult about it. Its vague definition of terrorism threatens all of our freedom of speeches, especially in a country where environmental defenders are already so endangered and persecuted. Then we need to fight back, especially for this. And that's where after this, we've also had some relief operations last November where we've raised over 1 million pesos. I've lost count at this point, for different communities hit by the different typhoons. And that is the role of the youth. We have to take this on, because if you look at almost every historical movement, the youth of that generation has been at the forefront with those most marginalized, and this is us just passing it on. Someone said to me recently, I was in a talk with Jane Fonda recently, and she said this really, really amazing thing where she said she used to think that activism was a sprint and would burn herself out, and she realized it was a marathon, and so she had to pace herself. And then she realized it's not a marathon, it's a relay race. So those from the older generation have to pass the baton down to the younger generation and keep running with us. And that is so beautiful to me, because it's true. We're not just fighting for our own generations, we're fighting for the next generations, we're fighting for the future of our planet. And the youth have this special role because we have that physical and mental energy to grasp environmental issues. We are going to inherit the earth, and we're here. Like, a lot of what we do to stir popular knowledge and opinion is there are a lot of memes and just really funny things to make sure that people think that the climate crisis isn't so overwhelming and can actually be something that they join. The youth's intellect, energy, and courage make it indispensable in the struggle for environmental protection and social transformation. And so what should the youth do? We need to learn about the issues we face on a local and international scale. It is very important that we empower ourselves with knowledge, and we empower ourselves with not only knowledge like the technical knowledge and the science behind the climate crisis, but also the indigenous knowledge, the knowledge of our environmental defenders. A lot of what YACAP does before the pandemic was to bring students to vulnerable communities to learn from these communities, because they have this knowledge that we will never have, this firsthand concrete experience of the climate changing, and that's something that they see with their very eyes because their livelihoods are so tied to the environment. Another thing that should be done is to join and ally with organizations that promote genuine environmental advocacy, because again, there is power in numbers. Since 2019, we have grown to over 300 to 400 members across the Philippines, and it's this beautiful thing, seeing that more and more youth are really taking on the task to spread awareness and to take action. A quote from Greta Thunberg, who sparked this movement: "We have come here to let you know that change is coming, whether you like it or not. The real power belongs to the people." And that's the thing. We also have to recognize that she sparked this movement, but people have been fighting way longer than she has. Our indigenous peoples have been at the front line of the defense for so long, and now we are here, and we are seeing that this is a global movement, and it is something that we have to take on. And so we have to embrace the call to save the earth. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mitzi. Thank you, Mitzi. Isang mahigpit na yakap para sa Youth Advocates for Climate Change or YACAP. Isang mahigpit na yakap din para sa mga environmental defenders and environmental activists. Mitzi, you're correct. No red tagging will dampen our spirits. Not at all. Mitzi, I hope you can still stay with us until the open forum. Okay, for our next speakers, let me see. Oh, our next speakers are sisters. They are the founders of Kids for Kids, a youth-driven organization that advocates for climate and social justice. They are the country's representatives of the International Environmental Conservation Organization, Bye Bye Plastic Bags. They are also the founders of Tayo, a creative consultancy focusing on sustainable strategies. Both are currently students at the University of the Philippines, Diliman. Friends, let us give them a warm virtual round of applause. Natasha and Isabella Tanhutko.
Hi
Natasha?
everyone. Thank you so much for that introduction. Yeah, thank you so much again for having us here to talk and to hear also the perspectives of the other youth members. So it's so great to be part of this community where adults are finally listening, and like it's really great. Like me and my sister were just talking about it like right before this, and it's so nice to see how you guys are passing on, like what Mitzi was saying, passing on the baton to us. So we'll be presenting a little bit of what we do and kind of how we started Kids for Kids. So again, I'm Tasha. And I'm Bella, and we started Kids for Kids when I was around 13 and my sister was 15. And basically, we just saw the lack of a lot of extracurricular activities when it came to like in our high school. There's a lack of like giving back opportunities, and so we saw it because a lot of people kind of viewed giving back as more of a chore or something that was supposed to be graded, and we wanted to change that perspective. So that's when we started our organization, Kids for Kids. And we really stand for both people and planet. Since we were young, we were always exposed to the most vulnerable communities. Our parents exposed us to everything that they could have possibly done to allow us to understand how we could kind of help out our country. And so in 2015, with no plans, no hidden agenda, we were really just a bunch of high school kids who decided to kind of change the way giving back was presented to other kids, to make it something fun and exciting, and to allow them to be a part of the change they wanted to make. And when we did this, we realized that the most effective way was making it fun, relatable, and promoted the value of friendship, because these are the things young people are constantly looking for. And using these elements, we were able to kind of change the way giving back was presented, because we didn't want to make the kids seem like they were our beneficiary. We wanted them to be our friends, and we wanted to kind of develop this close relationship to the people we were helping out, because all in all, what our generation aims to do is, to close that social gap in order to kind of make change more effectively. And so what we really do is just to keep up to date, to continue raising awareness and continue finding ways that young people can give back. And over the quarantine, this is something that we still continue doing, and we tried to do, and thankfully we have the internet to be able to do that. And so over the past 5 years, running Kids for Kids has taught us really that young people can touch lives of other young people in a completely different way. And so we really promote the value again of seeing the youth as the biggest untapped source of hope and energy today. And so that's what we try to do. With no matter what walk of life you are from, there's a possibility that you can make a huge difference. And we wanted to promote this especially to the kids of today, especially those who didn't even have the opportunity to even step up themselves. So we wanted to amplify their voices. And so that's when we found out that change was basically holistic, that you can't only like change one issue, whether it be education or food security or safe environment and clean water. Everything intersected. And so it was really all about changing the future of this child and giving him a safe environment, and making sure that they understood that environment wasn't limited to the trees and the oxygen that we breathe, but it's everything around us as well. And sadly, this is the environment that they were growing up in. This is actually a picture I took in one of our coastal cleanups in 2018, I think. And this was the time there's this whole metal straw phase, we like to call it, where people were trying to understand how they could be a part of the solution. And we really wanted to bring forward avenues for young people to do that. But when we realized that this problem was way bigger than we expected, and that, again, what Missy was saying, it's a systematic issue. If we realize and see this is what the emissions look like on a global scale and how we actually, again, emit the least, and yet when it comes to vulnerability, we are affected the most, that's when we realize that this whole child's right to a safe environment had to be taken into a bigger scale, and it was systemic. And so promising Filipino children a better future was really talking about also who they were as the people, because you can't just talk about the planet without talking about who were the people living in it. We wanted to educate how that social responsibility was really interlinked with environmental responsibility. So before the typhoon, actually in July, there was a huge issue with illegal logging in Cagayan. And during the typhoon, we saw that they actually were prone to the highest risk of flooding. And so we just kind of see that intersection and see how many people suffered because of that. And another aspect we always like to talk about when we're seeing all these social and environmental changes happen is how it affects us as Filipinos. A perspective we kind of like seem to lose when talking about the climate crisis or how our country is affected is that we don't really see our history or what was the main root cause of why our system is like this. And so we always try to go back to the making people realize that we still do have a westernized education system. And this is something that we do have to talk about, because if we don't realize the root cause of the problem, then we'll just keep going in circles. And so we like highlighting it once again that we have to learn who we were as a people and how we used to work with the land
and
rather
slowly
against it.
decolonize ourselves as well.
And so we always highlight as well that the Philippines isn't a small country. I had the privilege of having Guidon Lasco as my prof in UP, and he really inspired me to continue advocating for this. And since me and my sister have been part of a family that has been advocating for Filipino for a really long time, it kind of just adapted to the way we view the world. And so if we stop viewing the Philippines as something so small because we realize its smallness is static, but rather look at it as young and youthful, then we have a lot of avenues for change. We have so many opportunities to challenge what the norms are of our time. And something that we realize is because the Philippines is so adapted to a westernized system, all of a sudden when we are faced with choices to promote local and support our indigenous people, or look at what the West has and always have this mentality that West is best, we then look at money and wealth in something that isn't truly ours. We end up leaving those that are protecting our environment, like our environmental defenders, with the least, because people don't understand it. And then it gives us this whole idea that wealth and really what everything is good is something outside of our own country, is something better out there. And all those that have been fighting for Filipino, all those that have been protecting our environment, all those who don't have the opportunity to leave the country feel like they've lost. And so we really want to change this perspective, because the reasons why we can't solve poverty for some reason or address the climate crisis is because we simply just forgot who we were as Filipinos. And this is something that sounds very metaphorical, but in reality, if we were to take it on a scale where we understand how our indigenous people still do it, and once again, maybe in the future where we realize Filipino is something we want to promote, localizing things is something we want to promote, when again people are given two choices whether to promote the West or things that are local solutions, people will end up choosing to realize that it is possible to invest in nature-based solutions in the Filipino. And that will allow us really to drive this new world, this new Philippines that we're thinking of better, because people are understanding that what we once had is something we need to keep. We keep on forgetting that how our ancestors were, how we really were, was we really prioritized our agriculture, and we we're actually one with nature. And so it's time to bring that back, especially now where we kind of invest in nature and invest in local solutions that will better our country. And so that was really what we always talk about, is how we have to think global but act local. And in the work that we do, we really always see the intersectionality. And I think that's what young people are really rising towards today, is seeing that it isn't just about environmental justice, and it's also about social justice. They aren't mutually exclusive. So when the typhoon hit, we just started doing relief operations. What happened is that we decided to make an entire youth network, gathering all these different youth organizations, and we all just created databases in order to help people who needed rescue, who needed relief, and who needed load to text people for rescue as well. And so this entire network just showed us how strong and powerful the youth can be. Because at like 12 a.m. at night, I was sending rescue boats to Cagayan just through my phone, just contacting different people. And it just really shows how also what Missy is talking about, the lack of accountability in terms of authorities, and how it's always the burden is put on the youth, and that's something that we like to also address. And so in the work that we do, we realize that when you're close to the problem, you're close to solutions. And that's why we always look at the root cause and go back to our history and learning about that, seeing how we were once really close to the land, understood the way things were. And then all of a sudden, when the West came in, we forgot who we were. And for some reason, we were left like this. And that's why when we talk about what we want in our future, it's talking about how we want nature. And that's why our futures are with nature. It's wherever our environment is. And that's why we promote the child's right to a safe environment. It's because it encompasses all the children's rights. And so to think global and act local allows us as people to think long term. And so in the solutions that we have been coming up with since 2015, we always take into account our farmers, our fisher folk.
We feel like they're the frontliners.
People.
Yeah, they're the frontliners of the climate crisis. They're the frontliners of the local solutions in order to combat all the issues we're facing today.
The most importantly as well are young people. And so young people of today really are so enamored and interested in learning about these problems and can't wait to come up with solutions. And so that's why we ended up coming up with Tayo, which is our kind of change agency that we started 2 years ago. After our constant work with Kids for Kids in this NGO world, we realized that in order really to change the system was to see the way the system worked and to slowly kind of transform businesses and companies to understand that if you really want to contribute to nation building, then you have to look at what is Filipino and what is with the environment.
It is authentically and honestly transforming this business as usual into something that will better both people and planet.
And so again, when we started Kids for Kids, the work that we did was immediate work as well, which was like relief drives and donation drives.
Where we raised over 16 million in order to distribute relief operations as well as long-term solutions to different communities nationwide. And up till now, we're still distributing to affected communities.
And we also did long-term action. And so we work with different people, meet people from different communities to understand how we could kind of help and come in and empower the youth also of those different areas. When we also look at our problems today, we realize that it's just simply connecting communities. And so that's what we constantly do with all our outreach drives. It's giving back to our farmers as well as giving back to those that don't have anything to eat. And it's even coming up with fun ways to kind of get people to understand how they can contribute change from home.
This is a campaign we did last year called Bake Exchange, and we just got all these local businesses to come together and spread awareness on the rights of a child, because we thought that was something that wasn't talked about.
And we even in 2016, we came up with Kamalayan, which is our art festival for awareness.
Basically, we wanted to combine local art and music industries and environmental and social issues in order to, make the youth understand better why we should be caring and all these relevant issues that should be brought up into casual conversations.
And so we tried to kind of champion climate conscious festivals when we were 16. And this is really something challenging. It was to work with local artisans who could kind of help us set up the entire experience, as well as work with young people to get their ideas and kind of develop it to create this entire community that was enjoying supporting local music, local art, and local people.
But all for helping our farmers.
And we ended up coming up with Habilin, which is our movement for education, because when we came up with this kind of one-day convention all about marine life, we were shocked that young people, 250 young people, wanted to sit through 6-hour talks on environmental education. And so what we decided to do is come up with a movement that wanted to transform the education system.
Because we realized that there's really a lack of environmental education in our curriculum today. And so that's how through Habilin, we're teaching these kids important issues that should be talked about and that they should be learning in schools.
And so, for example, we launched the Preferendum, which is like a survey to get people's opinions on environmental education. So we were able to get over 1,000 plus respondents on that. And so we're trying to develop material, educational material by kids for kids. And we are also having different workshops online. So we created this Change Makers workshop where we work with youth from all over the world to kind of come together in one platform to exchange ideas, to turn their passions into possible changes. And our last kind of social initiative we launched was Retaso, which
So we did this in 2019 because we also saw the big problem in the textile waste industry that really wasn't really being talked about. And so as a tangible solution, we then collected a lot of the retasos from local businesses and seamstresses and turned them into alternative bags. And our latest project that we are working on this year is called Kapuluan ng Kabataan. And basically what we want to do with all the ideas that we've had was really to generate physical safe spaces for young people to connect back to our natural world. And by doing this, we are actually trying to tackle different areas around the Philippines to create physical spaces where young people will feel safe, public spaces where young people can learn about the environment, and it will also act as a place where young people can network with each other to create possible collaborations and change-making ideas. And so currently we do have our pending locations. We do have 2 in Luzon, 2 in Visayas, the Youth Hub in Giwan, which was something we worked on in 2016 together with UNICEF, and in Mindanao, hopefully later next year. And with everything that we do, we always look at long-term solutions for our future generations. So everything me and my sister have been doing and spreading to everyone else that we're working with, we really tell them that this isn't just for you, but it's for your kids, it's for your grandkids, it's for whoever comes after. So always tap into like young people who have local and sustainable solutions. So this is our partnership actually with 1 Million Lights, where we distributed just recently all these solar lights to affected communities who still don't have the energy to generate light.
And so we really need to rewrite the narrative and create a better story. So even if the climate crisis is something that's so heavy, we still need to have hope and optimistic action in order to face this harsh reality.
And in order to humanize this entire crisis and this entire movement, it's really just telling each other the stories of our lives.
And you can't teach, something we really learned was you can't teach someone about the climate crisis when they're hungry. And so you have to properly contextualize and make things digestible, because not everyone can kind of stomach all these different harsh things. And so it's important to collaborate instead of competing,
and then innovate, because we see that the times are changing and our generations are thinking differently. So we also have to innovate with the times, and as well listen to young people, because we are the next generation and we are currently inheriting this land. And so it's really up to us and up to everyone else to kind of protect our earth, because it's not only the young people who are inhabiting this earth, it's also everyone else.
And so in the end, the quote that we always like to end with was said by a Syrian refugee that we met over the quarantine. And he said that he prioritized happiness because it's our last form of resistance and survival. And so in everything that we do in Kids for Kids or in Tayo, it's really promoting that source of fun and hope and optimism to face the challenges of our time. So thank you so much. That was kind of like a summary of the things we've been doing the past 5 years, and
our
advocacies, and we've been so honored to share it with you all.
Well, thank you so much. You sisters, well, I'm speechless. I can't stop smiling. I mean, if you're faced with young people like this, Carlo, di ba? Started at 16 or 15, what? Nakakamangha. It's so amazing. It's awesome. It really gives me not just hope, but inspiration. And natatawa lang ako dun sa the adults finally are listening. No? Kasi, it's really, we must say that the trouble our environment is in today is largely the fault of my generation and the generations before ours. So we are trying so hard to do what we can to fix it, but we really need the youth. After all, it's their world eventually. We're not going to be around for so much longer. So this is really, really, really good. Thank you, Shafi, for bringing these really great speakers and who have these great activities to share with us what they're doing for the environment. I hope that more young people will be inspired to follow your footsteps and that we can collaborate, in creating a better tomorrow for everyone. Okay, so our third speaker is an architecture student of the Polytechnic University. He is the lead convener and co-founder of Youth Strike for Climate Philippines, one of the pioneer youth-led climate movements in the country. He is a deputy director for training and development of Good Gov PH and is currently a youth constituency advisor for Living Laudato Si. To speak about the youth response to the climate crisis, we are happy to have with us Jeff Estela. Jeff?
Hello everyone, magandang hapon po, isang makalikasang Biyernes sa ating lahat. Thank you for inviting us, the youth, here in this special afternoon. And it's so great to be with earlier speakers talking about their passion, our advocacies, our shared goals towards our future and environment. I would also like to thank everyone, especially the organizers of this event, for inviting me and my co-speakers for us to tell what we are been doing from the past years. So allow me to share my screen po. All right. Can you see my screen po? All right.
Yes.
Again, isang mga kalikasang hapon po sa ating lahat. I'm Jefferson from Youth Strike for Climate Philippines, and I'm so honored to be with here talking in front of the people who started our shared advocacies and the people we look up to. Maraming salamat po sa inyo, and I'm so honored to be with these people and this screen fighting for our future, the Filipino youth in climate action. To start, I would like to tell what our organization is doing. We are one of the pioneer youth-led climate movement in the Philippines, fueled by the goal to empower young Filipino to act against climate crisis and demand climate justice by humanizing climate action and, making this through activism, policymaking, and storytelling. And one of the things that we are doing alongside with the organizations that mentioned their initiatives ay ang Filipino Youth Declaration for Climate Justice. It's a set of declaration and a demands of the Filipino youth across the country on how the Philippine government will address the climate crisis and achieve climate justice. Nandyan po yung address the climate crisis with the urgency to achieve climate justice, implement environmental and natural resource conservation policies, build truly sustainable cities and communities, for empower populations most vulnerable and at risk to climate impacts and improve their health. Number 5, safeguard the rights of our indigenous people, local communities, and environmental defenders. And lastly, uphold youth participation in local, national, and international policymaking. And alongside with what I have discussed and mentioned earlier, we do these things through the climate strikes. So we did our first climate strike last May 15, 2019, together with a lot of environmental organizations. And then when we did the September 2019 climate strikes, we did a lot of climate strikes all over the country. I think it's more than 25 plus. From this picture, it's in Bacolod, it's in Davao City, it's in Mindanao. This both picture in top, and this is in Quezon City, and then this is one is in Iloilo, and then the other one is in Silliman University. We also make it into a lot of news sites, encouraging and telling people why the Filipino youth are joining the climate strikes, bakit kami nagrarally, bakit sumasama ang mga kabataan sa lansangan. At hindi din po natin to magagawa kung wala po tayong cross-sectoral collaboration. One of our network and strong allies and members of the organizations are mainly galing po no sa Negros, and they are able to do to campaign and to champion yung kanilang campaign na declare Negros coal free or coal free Negros by um, doing cross-sectoral collaboration within the church, within the local communities, affected communities of the yung itatayong plano na coal power plant po dun sa Negros, no? At kasama pa ng ibang mga organisasyon at mga eskwelahan sa isla nila. Siyempre hindi din po mawawala ang pagsama natin at pag-join sa ating mga policy work na ginagawa, dahil personally, we believe that advocacies are great, but it will be even greater kapag ito po ay may backup na policy work, so that it will be, will become sustainable. Kasama po natin dito ang aming nag-iisang representante ng kabataan sa Kongreso, at makikita po natin sa isang larawan dito na kasama din po namin si Representative Lauren Legarda. Siyempre, hindi din po mawawala ang ating pagsama at pagsusuporta sa iba pang mga calls and advocacies ng mga iba't ibang grupo, dahil naniniwala po kami na ang ating mga calls ay intersectional. Andyan po yung terror law, andyan po yung Save Taliptip na nanganganib dahil sa pagtatayo ng Bulacan Airtropolis, andyan po ang papatayo ng Kaliwa Dam, at ang patuloy na pagpuputol ng mga puno upang magtayo ng mga condominium sa Baguio, at ang tuluyan na haharas sa ating mga indigenous people na kamakailan lamang ay talagang talamak na hinaras doon sa Cebu. At kung mapapansin po ninyo, most of our works really revolves around IP's rights, environmental defenders' rights, climate education, youth involvement in action, climate justice, international relations and negotiations, and policy work. And along with these things that we are doing, ay number one po, last July 23, last year, we are the only one youth organization na kasama ng mga organisasyon sa Pilipinas. 16 youth organization, national youth organizations filed against the terror law. We filed a petition against the terror law because we believe that it's going to intensify the intimidation, the fear-mongering, and the present attacks on our environmental advocates, environmental defenders, and activists. That is why we, while we tend to our burning home because of climate change, this bill, we believe that the government trying to rob our constitutional rights and our future. That is why we joined this petition, and also to support that, because we believe in the genuine youth representation. We believe that in accordance with the law, dapat po marapat at tapat na mga representante ng kabataan ang nauupo dapat sa ating gobyerno. Kaya po last October 28, 2020, kami din po ay nag-file ng isa pang petisyon para patalsikin ang Duterte Youth Party List po, para dahil hindi sila ang tunay na representante ng kabataan sa Pilipinas. They don't really serve the interests of the marginalized, the vulnerable sector, and mostly of the Filipino youth. Also, we have put this petition in Bataris, calling our president and si Representative Alan Peter Cayetano for the collaboration of the youth in the in the Better Normal Bill, which is the Bayanihan 1, 2, and 3. Uh, this number is not updated, but we are in talks with the bill which is currently reading po sa ating Kongreso, the Bayanihan 3. Also, we have a petition again with our Greenpeace in accordance and relation dun sa binabasa ngayon na single-use plastic bill sa Kongreso upang mapahinto na po yung ating pag-produce ng mga single-use plastic at talagang panagutin yung ating mga kumpanya na talaga ay sila ay mag-adjust at mag-redesign at mag-reduce ng SUP. At kamakailan lang din po, last year, pagkatapos ng sunod-sunod na bagyo sa Pilipinas, tayo po ay lumahok bilang representante ng kabataan sa ginanap na pagpupulong sa Kongreso upang iparating ang hinaing ng mga kabataan ukol sa lumalalang tensyon at epekto ng krisis pangklima sa Pilipinas. Tayo po ay naimbitahan sa Kongreso habang pinag-uusapan po natin on how we can better do things, how can we manage properly in disasters, and how the youth can collaborate more and participate more in the government decision making. Talagang i-assert natin yung ating upuan sa ganito mga pag-uusap. Pinag-usapan po natin dito yung tungkol sa NDC, yung pagpapasa po ng Nationally Determined Contribution at yung usapin ng climate emergency declaration sa bansa. At ukol nga accordance po dun sa nabanggit ko nung kanina, tayo din po, ang aming grupo din po ay naglunsad ng isang youth consultation on the NDC draft, and I believe every one of people here nakasama din po namin sa mga ilang sectoral consultation, at kami po ang nanguna sa consultation ng mga kabataan which happened last week and attended by a lot of organizations nationwide. And after that, we also joined the statement and the convening of the Philippine Society organizations about the issuance and yung pagpapasa po natin ng ating nationally determined contribution to the UNFCCC, because we believe that the youth is a very important aspect of this important document under the Paris Agreement, because we are talking not just about our future, but the future of all. And hopefully this year po, if things will going to settle, we are hoping to really join the COP26 in Glasgow, UK, and to join the Conference of Youth, as well as because we are now doing a lot of works internationally in terms of international agreements and decision making according or among the youth as Filipino representatives. And one thing that I love the most din po sa ginagawa namin, I would also like to share our podcast. It's a podcast series po called Malaya. It's a collection of stories for the made by the youth and for the youth. So if you happen to have Spotify po and other streaming apps, you can listen to our podcast po on streaming services. Apart from what I have discussed po and what my co-speakers discussed earlier, it's really great to see a lot of young people like me doing this kind of things, even if it's really tiring, lalo na't nasa dark era tayo ng ating bansa because of the pandemic and the continuous attacks of the government to advocates, to activists. We have seen that the youth have always played key roles in moments of crisis, especially at this pandemic. We have seen this in the recent Taal volcano last year, Taal volcano eruption, when the pandemic spurge. when the pandemic affected the school setup, nung nangyari po yung mga kabi-kabilang mga bagyo at yung mga kabi-kabilang atake, pagpatay, pananakot sa mga aktivista, sa mga advocates, sa mga scientista, sa mga marginalized communities, IPs, magsasaka, mangingisda, and the youth had acted as communicators, volunteers, health workers, community organizers, name it. And I know that you have seen it, you have heard it, and you feel the momentum, you feel the urgency of the youth to act on those things. And we need to do the same for the climate crisis. I believe that this kind of energy should be put also how we solve the climate crisis, because the climate crisis will not solve itself. And I believe that if we put this kind of energy, we will solve or even contribute more so that people will not be affected anymore. Um, and people will have hope for their future, as well as us, the young people, na ang tanging pangarap lang naman po namin ay magkaroon ng isang maayos sa kinabukasan. Mali po ba na ipaglaban yon? Siyempre hindi. Kaya patuloy po nalalaban ng kabataang Pilipino. Before I end, I would like to leave this quote po, and I believe every one of you knows this already, but I always believe that, and I always say sa mga mas nakakabata sa akin, no, and to other youth advocates, that never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. That you can change anything if you want to. Always believe that in every action that you do, there's a certain person, there's a certain community, and there's a generation that depends on your action. So, do it. Again, maraming salamat po. Magandang hapon sa ating lahat.
Maraming salamat, Jeff. Thank you very much. Alam mo, tingin ko, if in the future I get, frustrated and depressed, and, I feel that things are not going as fast as we want them to go, I just need to review this session. It will be on tape and it will be uploaded on our website para maging masaya ako ulit. I think this session is going to give me 1,000 smiles for the week, guaranteed na yun. Thank you so much to our resource speakers. And now we are ready to ask the questions. Papasok na po tayo sa open forum. May I remind you that your questions will not be answered right away. Do not expect that. They will be answered sa third portion. Please give your name and your organization or where you come from before asking your question. And for other guidelines, let's listen to Carlo.
Okay, you may speak, of course. Please call our attention by raising your hands literally on your screen, and our Green Convergence staff will help find you from the different galleries. Or click the raise hand button. If both still don't work, unmute your mic and say that you want to be recognized. And let me reiterate that we will first listen to all the questions from the gallery, and then after that, we will read the questions from the chat box. Speakers, it is up to you to handle those questions later on, because some of them may be interconnected. Okay, who would like to start?
First question coming up. Do we see any hands raised or?
While waiting for questions to come, Marie, may I read the organizations that are represented here today?
Yes, that's right. Good, yeah.
But while I am reading this long list, please write down your questions in the chat box, or be ready to verbalize those questions after this reading of those who are present here today. So let me recognize the following organizations. USLS Educ Yes Club. Sorry, I do not know the meaning of this acronym. Forgive me. Soroptimis International of Ortigas and Environs, Rotary Club of Las Piñas West, U.S. Green Building Council, ENR Ambassador, Aksyon Kalikasan Philippines, Educators Guild for Excellence, GPP Kalikasan Muna, Green Party of the Philippines, Rotaract Club of Makati, United YFPH-EV. What is that? Sorry. Balud YHES, Foundation for the Philippine Environment, Partnership for Clean Air, Inc., Miriam College, Lupon ng mga individual na nangangalaga ng kalikasan, Inc., Young Earth Saver Society, is another long acronym, DMMM, three M's, SUNLUC, Global Institute for Youth Development, Youth for Earth Society, Youth Advocates for the Philippines, Central Visayas Colleges, Central Mindanao Colleges, Oceana, Our Lady of Pentecost Parish Public Affairs Ministry, De La Salle University, Alliance of Magnanimous Youth Leaders, Inc., SIOE-CFAP, Soroptimis. I've already read this. So far, these are the organizations I have here on my list. While we're only 54 in the room, we have a wide range of representatives from different organizations, and that's really good. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, it's wonderful. This means there are a lot of people willing to work for the environment.
Right, that's right. Okay, who
Yeah.
would like to start asking a question?
You know, I'm looking at the chat box and I don't even see questions here. Parang ang linaw na kasi. I think our youth representatives gave a very clear presentation. Or very clear presentation. So parang tingin ko namamanghalang mga tao hindi na nakakapagtanong ng questions. So,
Dr.
okay.
Nina is raising her hand.
Who?
Dr. Nina.
Oh, okay. Nina, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Nako, talagang tama yung word ni Marie, kakamangha ang mga ginagawa nitong mga kabataan. I'm really so heartened and inspired. You started, Carlo and Marie, sharing how you started to be environmentally aware. And then si Natasha and Isabella also mentioned that it was their parents who gave them that service orientation, no? And society orientation. It would be nice if Mitzi and who's the guy?
Jeff
also, told us how they started, because so that people will be conscious of opportunities to influence others, no? Then my second question is, do you have all these three groups? Do you have networks with schools, with the youth groups in schools? Because that can be a ready-made network and chain of organizations to really accelerate and to really magnify your movements. So those are my two comment questions. How did you start? What influenced you to be environmentalist? And second one, do you have networks in school organizations, networks of school organizations, not environmentally oriented?
I can go ahead.
Okay. No, we can't. You don't answer the questions yet, no? You answer it in the third portion. So we take all the questions first. Okay, is that okay? Mamaya na yung sagot. Where are the other questions?
While waiting for the next question.
You know what, Carlo? I think maybe some people don't want to ask questions, but they may want to make a comment.
Yes, we will ask them to share their thoughts and insights.
Yes.
But for this time, let me read this question in the chat box.
Okay.
And it's addressed to Natasha and Isabel from Sister Maribel. Congratulations, inspiring talaga. Can you tell more from where all the youth you have touched, schools, communities, parishes, etc.?
Okay, that's a third question. We have three questions so far. Any other questions from the
We
gallery?
have a question po in the chat box. I'll just read it. GPP Kalikasan muna is supportive of the document produced during the mock COP26. Are there any of the youth speakers also supportive of it? I think this is also a way to unite our voices as one with the world and the youth. This is from David Diangelo. I think Jeff already answered this in the chat box, so Natasha, Isabella, and Mitzi can answer this after.
Okay, thank you,
Okay,
Jeffrey.
good.
There's another one from Jerome. Hi, Jerome. What are the challenges that youth environment groups encounter in pursuing projects?
Okay, that's a good question. I mean, we know what adults meet, what challenges we meet, right? But there may be special challenges that the youth have to meet. Okay, that would be nice, good to know. Are there any other questions or comments? We want to hear you. We want to see you.
Hey, by the way, link DMMMSU, yes, is a group from La Union.
Okay.
Shout out to all those from La Union.
Carlo,
Yes, miss.
I think that's Don Mariano Marcos University. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, one of our very first environmental education trainings when we started in the 90s was in that university.
Oh.
Yeah, and then years after, we went there again in another program, and we saw that they were really, they had internalized what we gave, and they were practicing and manifesting that they had the environmental perspective. So maybe that's why we have their participation here now and in other platforms of ours, I think. Congratulations. Thank
All right. Any other questions from the gallery or comments?
We have another question po in the chat box from Ms. Kat. The question is, what is your say regarding nuclear power plants as a mitigation measure to mitigate emissions of greenhouse gases?
How come I don't see that?
Okay. Why can't I see it in my chat box, Shafi? That question you asked?
I'll resend it na lang po.
Anyway,
yeah, but I was just wondering why you could see it and I couldn't. Okay, curious lang. So are there any other questions, comments, no more?
Pareho lang.
Yes, who was that?
Kay Marie, hindi man niya makikita, pero si ano nakakakita.
Okay. I think there's no more question.
A question pa?
Probably follow-up questions may arise after our speakers have already answered some of this questions.
Okay, right, good. So, wait, I have a question. Do you have a support group for against the harassment, the intimidation, the repression that the youth environmental defenders are getting? Meron bang support group? I ask because when I was with the human rights, with the human rights movement, we had a support group for detainees, for people who disappeared. we had support groups. So I'm wondering if there is such a support group for environmental defenders that you know of. Okay, so maybe we can start answering the questions. Who will begin?
Mitzi would like to start.
Okay, Mitzi, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't remember which was the first question, but I'll answer na lang po muna yung how I became an activist and if we're connected to organizations. So
Okay.
how I became an activist was actually because of an adult also. In 2017, I was able to talk to an indigenous leader of our land, the Lumad, in our university. I was also from UP Diliman, like Tasha and Ano. And he was telling me about how they were being harassed, killed, and militarized, and all these atrocities. And then he ever so simply shrugged and chuckled after and said, wala tayong choice eh. We have to fight back. So I was shocked na parang it's that simple to them. Like really, it's not a complicated issue. It's not a complicated thought. It is a simple fact. We are being threatened. We are being pushed to our limits. We have to fight back. There is no other choice. And I realized then yung privilege ko of having that privilege to choose to become an activist, and that's when I realized that I have to join the struggle. I have to join the people's struggle for true national liberation and true social justice. And the question on school organizations is actually exactly what YACAP is. We are an alliance of school organizations, student councils, and individuals, because we see the power of organization. And it's really cool because we have health, like pre-med students organizations, and then we have artist student organizations, and then we have scientists, like mga science organizations. So you see how the different ways of how they're attacking the climate crisis, and we can put them together. So like yung mga pre-med students, very health-wise yung attack nila. Yung mga scientists, mas science. Yung mga artists, they make our climate strikes like so much prettier, and it's really beautiful to see how that comes together. And I think there's a question about mock COP26. Yes, we are. I was also actually part of the co-organizers. I was one of the volunteers. I was a speaker. I was there. I was on the advisory board when they were trying to develop the thought early on, because I was friends with some of the UK students who thought of the thing, and they asked for my advice as someone who is from the global south. So yes, I definitely support it. We definitely need more representation of Filipino youth, especially in climate policies and climate talks. I'm not sure what the other questions were at this point.
The support group that I asked. Do you know of any support group for environmental defenders against repression, etc.?
There are different networks. Like yung YACAP, we're part of like this loose network / group chat of different environmental NGOs, and when someone needs support, we just send it in there. I'm not sure if there's a formal network. There are like other organizations. I'm sure that if we reach out to any NGO or any grassroots movement like Kalikasan People's Network for the Environment, or we also work a lot with 350 Philippines, they've always been very supportive. At least for us, they're the ones who make sure that everything we're doing is like going to keep us safe legally and security wise. Like we have a few very daring actions for the global climate strike in March, and they're the ones running through the security risks and running through the legal risks to make sure that we're all safe if we do it.
That's good.
There's a question related to a nuclear power plant. Would you like to share your thoughts on this? Nuclear power plant as a mitigation measure to the emission of greenhouse gases.
It's dangerous, especially in the Philippines, where we have so many earthquakes, and the integrity of some of our existing nuclear power plants are very questionable. So I would say, as in the Philippine context, when we know that nuclear power has caused so much destruction in people's lives, and it's such a dangerous thing, why do we need to push for it when our other resources are so rich? We are so rich in wind, in solar, in water, but we're not pursuing those because they're not necessarily the most profitable. They're not necessarily the easiest ones to make, but they are available for us, and we can do that if we had the political will, if we had the support of the government, because this is what the people have been pushing for. But I will put a caveat and a disclaimer to the solar energy. Like a lot of solar farms we're seeing now in the Philippines are displacing farmers. So we also, again, have to make sure that when we have those renewable energy plants, they are still keeping a in mind those most impacted and those who have been fighting against the environmental destruction for the longest time. Kasi anong point ng renewable energy if yung farmers mo wala silang land to farm? Wala tayong food, wala tayong support ng farmers natin, and then ganun pa rin. It's the same thing but just green. So again, it's so interconnected. It's not just about one thing, but it's about all the things at once.
Thank you, Mitzi.
What about the challenges? There was a question on challenges, Mitzi. What are the challenges?
So many, especially during this pandemic. I'm sure it's not just environmental groups, pero ang daming nababurn out because of Zoom fatigue, because of online classes. Diba? Like I'm sure people are so tired of just sitting in their screens, sitting at home, and just this general feeling of hopelessness, not just with the environmental issues, but with how the government is handling a lot of issues here in the Philippines. And that is one of the biggest challenges, getting people to care again, getting people to, I mean, I get the point. It's so important to prioritize your mental health. But then there's also the part na, there's this really, really good quote that I love na, once namulat ka, kasalanan ng pumikit pa. So it is so hard to have that balance na you're prioritizing your mental health, you're taking care of yourself, but you're still speaking up against the injustices. You're still helping, the greater society, because it is in the long term better for our mental health if, this isn't happening in our country and in the world. Other challenges are, of course, terror tagging and red tagging. I've experienced it a lot. And especially as a girl, there's also a lot of very sexist remarks that only women will experience, yung mga rape threats and objectification, and it's very difficult sometimes, a lot of times actually. And then there's also the part na activism is still very taboo, and as Natasha also mentioned kanina, yung our education is very westernized and colonialized, and so the way we have to tackle our education system is to make sure that it is fit for the Filipinos. And that's something that we're doing this year in YACAP. In April, we're going to have teach-ins in different communities. We've already talked to several fishing communities in Luzon, and we're reaching out to the Mindanao and Visayan communities na rin. And we're going to have a mutual learning, because again, it's not just those who are educated teaching those who aren't, but recognizing that we both have this rich repository of knowledge and experience and education, and we need to have an exchange and to have a communication, to have a relationship with one another if we want to develop as a country.
Okay. So who will be the next one to answer? Should it be the sisters, Natasha and Isabella? Where are you?
Hi, we're here.
Okay.
Thank you again so much for having us. And we'll try to answer the questions.
Okay,
But
so-
Missy answered a lot really well already.
So the first one is what inspired us to pursue this advocacy. Well, as we said, when we were just 13 and 15, that's when we started Kids for Kids, just because we, all our lives as kids, how our parents trained us is that we'd always see the realities of things, that we always exposed to these different communities. We'd always do outreach works ever since I was 3 and she was 5. And so it was always innate in us to give back. And so when we finally went to school and we saw that other kids didn't really think the same, they just thought of giving back as a chore or something that had to be graded, we wanted to change that perspective within the youth, because we thought that it is needed that we do have to have this compassionate thing for other kids who aren't given the opportunities that we were given. So that's how we kind of wanted to pursue advocacy and changing that perspective that these students had.
And then in terms of the whole part about the Filipino, we were heavily inspired by our lolo. He was a national artist for architecture, Bobby Manyosa. And so kind of being a part of a family that's been strongly trying to influence people to love our country for really long and growing up with it, I think that kind of continued like what we've been doing and how we kind of see it, all these different problems, and how we try to relate back to like us being Filipino. And I think like personally, that's why me and my sister decided to stay here and study in UP. It's because we wanted to understand the way our system worked. We wanted to be one with whoever was trying to make a difference and understand really that a lot of us are in a privileged position to be able to give back. And so we wanted to kind of show the people that don't really realize that giving back should be something innate, to kind of give that perspective, to bring them back down to earth, to make them realize that they have this privilege and to use it for something good is something that should be done always. And so do we have a network of schools? Yes, we do. So for the past 5 years, we've been building like an entire network of youth who just want to help out, like individuals, organizations, school organizations. And so we have a network of over, I think, 20 schools nationwide as of now. Yeah, but what we did when we started Kids for Kids is we made it very like, there's no kind of border into who our network is. So when we release signups, it's whoever from wherever you are. It's not a designated school or parish or certain sector. It's really just
Anyone who wants
to help out, anyone who's willing. And so that's why our network is also pretty diverse when it comes to our different projects. It's because we really open it up to no matter where you are from, whatever walk of life you are, you can be a part of Kids for Kids. It's because we want to learn from one another. So yeah. And then about the mock COP26. So I was actually part of the I signed up. Yeah, I was part of the delegation, but that was the exact same time the typhoon started hitting, and our relief work kind of just took over. Like we would spend 8 a.m. all the way until like 9 p.m. packing relief goods. Because again, during quarantine, like we couldn't be a lot packing it, so we were only like 10 packing relief packs for like 1,000 people a day. So that kind of took up a lot of my time, but we are definitely in support of it and really work with other climate orgs that are kind of really doing so many amazing things on ground. Like we've been trying to really show our support to that.
And then our stand on nuclear power plants. Exactly what Mitzi said. We, in terms of the contextualizing it for the Philippine setting, we're not seeing the dangers of it. Like what she said, it's not really suitable or not really the best option for our country right now, especially seeing that it can affect the livelihoods of so many people. And so it's utilizing what we have, like solar and wind, and also as she said, it's like supplying these people who are like might get the space with green jobs. So that's like a sustainable thing that we can do. Like even if like we exchange pretend like all these bad ways to like get energy to renewable ones, also kind of switching it and transforming jobs into greener ones, so that we still kind of provide livelihoods to other people.
Yeah. And also we really look towards nature-based solutions, like majority of the time. So when there are more natural ways that we can emit carbon, like why not restore forests instead of pouring money into nuclear power? So things like that. What are the challenges that youth environmental groups encounter in pursuing projects? I feel like honestly at the beginning it was really to be like respected by older people or professionals, because again when we started kind of working with people, we were only in the start of high school, and like
a lot of people didn't take us seriously.
Yeah.
So like we would be invited to like all these like different conferences that we'd go after school, or sometimes we'd even like kind of go halfway from school because they like to hear this conference and things like that. And it was hard because we really had to do our homework. So like me and sister would really research on like the speakers or who was hosting it, because when you're there you have to work 10 times harder than everyone else in the room just because you're younger. So you really have to match up to their level. And then now after 5 years we see more of the challenges that changing the perspective of adults, seeing us as just a mere inspiration or just something that they inspire us so much, and then that's it. It's more of their challenge is trying to make adults see us as sources of action, sources of ways that we can actually solve things concretely.
So yeah, and I guess amongst youth, it's also a lot, like with Miss you saying burnout, I feel like with our generation is something that has been happening a lot because we're in the middle of trying to adjust again to online classes. Like me and my sister both still in school. And so really trying to balance like everything that we're doing as well as trying to pass is quite a difficulty sometimes. And also because like, for example, our courses, and
We're both FA.
yeah, we're both fine arts students, and so it's completely different from the work that we're doing and the policies we have to learn about and all the different like legislation process, like completely far
So
from
it's
what we thought
we
we were doing.
we learn everything for our organization out of school, and that's something also like kind of like a challenge for us to be kind of like again like work 10 times harder. Yeah.
So
We have a support group within our organization. We do have a support group. It's called Kaanib. So that's basically like an internals committee where anyone who needs any kind of help or advice, especially in terms of mental health, they're just like a friend to go to. We have that committee within our organization. But in terms of like other organizations, I'm pretty sure, like Mitzi said, I'm pretty sure if we reach out, there will be other people. We're familiar with one of her friends. Her name's Clover Hogan. She's actually from the UK, and she does have an organization called Force of Nature, where their main purpose is really to help kids deal with eco-anxiety.
But personally, like in Kids for Kids, another strong advocacy we have other than the environment is online sexual exploitation of kids, because it's something that has been number one in the Philippines for a really long time and no one really talks about it. So we really kind of interconnect all the work that we do. So in terms of getting people also to understand how they themselves can understand such difficult problems or deal with themselves internally, we have other kind of like mentors that we kind of connect to as well.
And then can you tell more from all the youth you have touched schools? It's hard to kind of track, because like there are a lot. We've like centrally in so many communities. We have done projects in so many communities. We have actually database for it, but then like there was a lot. So but we can say proudly that we have touched a lot of communities in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao as well.
Yeah, so our volunteers, we do have 900 volunteers in our network, and then actively we normally have 150 per year that really do like active work on ground. In terms of communities, however, because of typhoon relief, we were able to successfully raise together with For the Future 16 million pesos. And so young people holding like that amount of money and really having kind of the opportunity to give back to as many communities as possible, we really worked with most marginalized areas. So we worked a lot with the Agusan community. We also did a lot of work in Catanduanes and in Bicol. And we really just try to expand, Cagayan, expand like our network of communities and mostly youth organizations, as Mitzi was saying, because there's so many now. So it's really trying just to find a way to connect everyone. But yeah, so I think that answers like all the questions. So thank you so much again for like having us. It's such a great opportunity, and congratulations for doing this for a really long time and not yet giving up. So yeah.
Marie, you need to unmute your mic.
Oh, okay. I muted it because the train is passing by. It's making a lot of noise. So thank you, Natasha and Isabella, for your answers. So it's now your turn, Jeff.
Hi everyone. Thank you for your questions. I do feel like um, nasabi na lahat ni Mitzi and the sisters earlier, but would like to add some lang po sa mga hindi nabanggit. In regards with the first question, what inspired me to become to be part of this advocacy? Actually, not many people know I'm a survivor of a typhoon. I survived together with my family the typhoon Ondoy, but I rarely discuss that to many people because I don't want to tell the story, or I don't want to make a point of view that you have to experience such traumatic events for you to do something for environment, for the community, for your generation. And what I wanted to really the youth or the people do is that even though that I have experienced such traumatic events, I was able to pull myself through. I was able to rise up from that traumatic experience that really impacted my life, my mental health, my studies, our financial, and our home. And I want to see people that these stories are just an amplifier of what will you become in the future. That story is not you, but a phase of your life that will help you to grow and will help you really build your advocacy in the future. Um, the second question, do you have a network for schools? Yes, just like Kids for Kids and YACAP, we also have a network for schools. The one thing that unique about this is local schools. Like for example, we have schools in Negros, which we are connected. A local diocese and local schools, elementary schools, which are partner and member organization or members and organizations na member po ng aming network is really convening the students, and that's a really aside from having a network here in Metro Manila, because one of the things that we also looking forward to break is that the Manila centric approach in doing the advocacy. We have seen that there's a large gap of distributing the energy, the synergy, the education, the awareness of in Metro Manila outside this area, this empire. That is why we are really looking, you know, having to empower and be and those local organizations and schools based organizations be empowered that they can do actions within their reach, within their area, without having, being part of here in Manila and such. For the third question, I believe I already answered this a while ago, but yes, we some parts of some people inside of our organization is part of the um, people inside the mock-up, and we are very supportive of this document, and we are looking forward to really communicate this document po sa ating mga NGO soon. I hope so, because we are in currently talks with some of the Bea. She's one of the coordinator for the Philippines po ng mock-up. So yung mock-up po, sa mga hindi po nakakaalam, is a youth-led pre-COP event led by the youth, because nga po na postpone yung COP, the international climate advocacy participated by a lot of young people around the world, decided to come up with this so that we can have a solid statement before the COP on October in Glasgow, UK. Number four, what is your say about the nuclear? I believe it was already mentioned by Natasha and Mitzi. Um, and I would also have to amplify that bakit pa tayo magkakaroon ng nuclear power plant if we haven't really maximize our own resources. Why do we have to look to other thing? And nandiyan naman yung bagay na talagang will help and contribute to solve our issues and problems in the society. What are the challenges that youth environment groups encounter in pursuing projects aside from the harassment that was mentioned earlier, the burnout, the mental health problems? I think you would also agree with this. I think it's the mobilization of resources. As you all know, we here are all volunteers. We are not paid for this. We are doing this purely by heart and passion. Um, and one of the hardest thing to do, or to really live up with this advocacy, is that we have to have resources. If we have if we don't have Wi-Fi, we have to load. We have to have load so that we can have an internet. Um, if we want to do something, we have to pull out resources to help other people. If we want to build or create an event, we have to maximize resources, and we can do that like anything of that. I mean, not all of those things, because we don't have jobs yet. We are all volunteers, but we are very thankful because we have a lot of genuine and supportive tito, tita in the NGOs, especially in the environmental advocacy. And so far we are thriving, we are surviving, and we have to have to think of other ways po para mas makapag uh, collect pa and makapag-maximize ng resources. In connection with the sixth question, I'm not sure if there is like an existing, but we do have a support group for climate change or climate activists here in the Philippines. Like for example, Joanne Sustento, Maria Nel Obaldo, some of the victims or climate activists that arose after the Yolanda, and other local climate activists here in the Philippines. We have this support group we have this group chat wherein we are just ranting, we're just asking for advice. We're telling stories of what we have been through, so that we can have this support group that will really na makakapaglabas kami ng aming mga problems and such. But I hope so there is. And yeah, I think that would be all.
Okay, thank you very much.
Marie?
Thank you, Jeff.
Marie?
So, alam mo, actually, we still have time. So I'm going to open the floor to someone who wants to talk about a young person also, youth pa din to, who wants to talk about, let's see, an international competition for youth in environment. Let's listen to someone, to the coordinator of in the Philippines of climate science.
Hello.
Let's
Hi,
listen
my name
to
is
Amaris Pulido.
Hello. So my name is Amaris Pulido. I am a coordinator for climate science Philippines. So we are the local community of climate science, which is an international nonprofit supported by the United Nations, supported by the University of Cambridge and the University of Oxford. So climate science as a whole is basically centered around promoting fun, innovative, but still scientifically reliable and accurate climate education. So, we want to help spread awareness about climate change while making it more accessible, easier to read, but still accurate, right, and factually true. It's an international nonprofit. So what my role is to help establish it here in the Philippines. We actually have only just started this February after being in the talks with the international team since January. So this is very new. But what I want to talk to you today is about our international problem solver. It's a competition called Climate Olympiad. I will place the link later on the chat, as well as my email in case you want to get in touch. What Climate Olympiad is that it's an international competition targeted towards the youth. We have two age brackets for this, 14 to 17 and 18 to 25. So you can compete as an individual or you can compete with a teammate. It's up to you. And what's going to happen is once you sign up, 10 days before the actual competition qualifier that you choose, because there will be several qualifier sessions, you can choose whatever date you're available or you're free, to do. And then 10 days before your qualifier, you will get 3 topic categories that you can research on. On the day of your qualifier and during your actual qualifier, you will be given 3 problem statements to which you get to choose which problem statement that is related to a climate change issue you want to answer in an essay. And you will have 3 hours for you and your partner to answer that question and to try to give an innovative solution. After qualifiers, you will your answer will be automatically submitted to our platform. Judges are going to decide the top 5% of all people who register and compete in qualifiers who will go to semifinals and eventually go to finals. So for the finalists, top 50 finalists will be invited to go to Glasgow in order to compete live. You can also compete virtually. Top 3 teams who win will win from a pool of 10,000 US dollars. So first place will get 5,000 US dollars, second place will get 3,000 US dollars, and third place will get 2,000 US dollars. And again, you can compete virtually if flying to the UK will not be safe at the time, right? Because of COVID. In addition to this, top 50 finalists will also be invited to the United Nations Climate Summit in November 2021. So if you are interested, you can compete in what we call an open qualifier that is open to anybody in the public. But if you are a school or you are a organization or an NGO or a youth group, what we can do for you is that we can host a private qualifier only for your organization. And if any of your participants that you send from your organization go through to the finals or make it far in the competition, then they will be called your representatives for your organization. Like their team name will be your organization name. So they'll be representing your organization or your school in that competition. And because that will be a private event qualifier for your specific organization or for your school, you can choose the time and the date for when your qualifier will be. So that will be the most convenient for you and for your teammates and for all the participants that you want to send. So yeah, I'll put my email in the chat box, and I'll also put the link to the website where you can read more about climate science, and you can also read more about the competition. You can check out the website at climate-science.com. Yeah, I kind of just like overtook. This was not part of the agenda. I just came home and my Lola was like, oh, we're having this forum. So thank you, grandmother, for letting me join this real quick. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Amaris. Thank you very much. I'm sure a lot of our young people will be interested in that. So we still have time, Carlo. Yes.
There's a pahabol question in the chat box. I don't know if we still have the time for.
Yes, we do. We do have the time.
Kat would like to ask our speakers about their rating of the accomplishments of the Climate Change Commission.
Oh yes, that's a very, very good question.
And there's another hand raised in the gallery. Jerome is raising his hand.
Okay, let's listen to Jerome before they answer that question in the chat box. Jerome?
Thank you very much, friends in Green Convergence, and especially to our youth, our future. Parang kailan lang kami nila Carlo yung youth. This forum is it's a clear sign that we have our future ahead of us. I just would like to invite especially the youth in the room, with the permission of Ma'am Nina and the rest of Green Convergence, for us to continue the discussion tomorrow. FPE is actually putting together another webinar as part of our Pearl anniversary, 29 years of FPE supporting civil society, pursue biodiversity conservation and sustainable development. So tomorrow po may youth and biodiversity webinar. So as of this morning, I think if my count is correct, around close to 200 already signed up from various parts of the country. So I hope na yung nandito sa forum natin, tuloy natin yung discussion tomorrow. And the non-youth who would want to join tomorrow, you can join, but as observers, kasi it's a forum for you. So among the youth, we're just facilitating, pero sila po ang mag-uusap tomorrow. FPE will just provide the space. And we will have a special announcement tomorrow. So I cannot announce it today. Kailangan nandun kayo tomorrow for you to ang hint ko is look back at the questions that I posted earlier. Para yan, tuloy natin yung pag-uusap tomorrow. And so thank you very much for allowing me to plug. And actually, we really are, the team of FP is also watching, I think, via Facebook. Kasi gusto namin i-connect yung discussion today here sa Kamayan to our discussion tomorrow. So thank you very much. And I'm happy, and daming mga fresh, fresh blood. Kaya lang si Ma'am Marie, tinatakot eh.
Hindi na
But may pinost po ako kanina because I know that the Foundation for the Philippine Environment and together with the Forest Foundation Philippines, we are funding yung environmental legal defense. And their program is basically to fight in the legal battles related to.
That's great. That's what I was looking for.
Yes, ma'am. And pinost ko po yung link. They have a website. It's run now by the alternative law groups. So maybe it merits a kapihan session in the coming months. Pwede sila mag-update sa atin what's happening on the legal front and maybe how they can support our young environmental champions.
Yes, and how we can prevent the state forces from, repressing our youth and their passion and their ideals, how we can prevent the government machinery from muzzling these promising youth. Yes, thank you very much, Jeremy. And now we also, I just want to call your attention to the thing, to Amaris's message here in the chat box. So she put there her email address. So if you're interested in a competition, that's you'd want to copy that. And what else? Do we have something here, Carlo? Something?
Well,
there's a question for Green Convergence, or well, not a comment really. Can you read it, Carlo?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
The question, not a question, a comment for Green Convergence. It says, I hope that Green Convergence can support the treaty drafted by the youth, mockcop.org/treaty. So maybe, Nina, can you answer that?
Yeah, I answered it actually with with a question. Where do we get that treaty and where do we get that statement? So we will know whether we will support.
Okay, that's right. We have to read the treaty before we can support.
Yeah,
right?
is it done? Is it done? Angelo, David?
Yes, no, I sent the link on the chat box.
Okay. So, let's
Marie, can I say something again?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, I don't know if everybody here in this Kamayan will be with us in the next Kamayans, but I already want to announce our vision of carbon neutrality in the year 2050. So Green Convergence, having organized group discussions and a national dialogue last year, arrived at the vision of working towards carbon neutrality 2050 to address climate change. So it's a definite quantitative target, and we have task forces who will be coordinating with different sectors, business, church, academe, and we have one sector for the youth.
Yes.
So you'll be hearing more about it, but
definitely,
you can start thinking about
it. April. In
yeah,
our
April
Kamayan. But next month, we are going to have our anniversary session, our 31st anniversary.
Yeah.
So we're going to prepare for that too. So don't miss March and April.
Okay.
Okay.
But in the
Anything else?
meantime, you will be hearing about it, and I think some of you already heard about it in our um, meetings about the NDC. So I hope you start thinking about it. It could be organization-based or individual-based, your tracking of your own carbon footprint. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I was also going to say that some of you will receive emails from me. So expect that. Uh, and now we still have time, Carlo. If
There's one question left hanging about the speaker's rating of the
oh yes, that's right.
of the
Yes,
class.
let's go down the line again from Mitzi to the sisters and Jeff. How would you want to answer that? Mitzi, are you still there? Is Mitzi still there? Okay, if not, then
Hello po. What was the question again? Sorry.
the
What
question.
is your rating of the accomplishments of the Climate Change Commission?
I think I can go first po siguro since we are really working, I mean, not working directly with them, but working with you, the NGOs, together to CCC.
Yes.
I hope po walang taga CCC dito.
Pero maririnig nila to.
But personally, we commend naman po. We commend their efforts throughout the years since the ratification of the Paris Agreement since 2015. I personally have seen it because I'm a product of a lot of engagements from NYC, National Youth Commission, and Climate Change Commission, and the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. They've done a lot of youth consultations from the past, and they're very willing to listen to the other sectors. But in this time, I am really, I mean, if we want to really push forward our advocacy or our goal that the Philippines is a climate leader, as we boast it in international scenes, then we should really act those words po, no, dun sa ating documents. I believe many of you have read yung ating NDC, and it's not that really, kumbaga, we support it, but it's not the document that we want to or the contributions and the responsibilities that the Philippines should shoulder, because we can do better than that. The Philippines is kumbaga, sa Pilipinas po marami po tayong magandang batas, napakadaming batas, magagandang mga batas, but it's really, nagkakaproblema tayo dun sa ating implementation. And I believe that NDC a is just the, kumbaga, sa paglipad ng eroplano, naglilipad pa lang tayo. The implementation of NDC is after the submission on 26th. Dun po talaga mag-i-start yung ating trabaho ng CCC. And as per the contents, I believe that, we can do better than that because nagawa pa tayo ng mga, kumbaga, if that document is really kumbaga commendable, bakit pa tayo mag-held ng awit fe and youth sectoral collaborations, right? Na parang we have to, as NGOs, we have to plead pa sa CCC na we have to do this. Sila naman yung sole representative and the sole or commission that links up to the UNFCCC. Why do we have to parang magmakaawa na i-include yung forest sector sa NDC when in the first place it should be included, right? And why do we have to, kumbaga, why do we have to convene all of the youth? Why we are not included in the document when we are talking about our future, our education, our lives in the next 10 to 5 years? Why won't we asking for the for the um, for the comments and suggestions of the vulnerable communities such as farmers, fisher folks, sila naman po talaga yung maapektuhan ng mga decisions na gagawin ng CCC and the government. As we all know, this implementation, ang maapektuhan po nito tayong lahat. And we have to really have, kumbaga, all of the people should have say on this, but unfortunately not everyone is in the table, not everyone is invited, not everyone is, kumbaga, have a seat in the discussion. That is why we have to become more proactive in involving people, lalo na sa mga ganitong decision making, because we only have 10 years. That's quite alarming, and for me as a youth, I don't know, kumbaga, if I'm talking about my future pa ba ako? I mean, I'm dreaming of something I want, but given this kind of things that the current governments, not just the Philippines, no, but the global leaders is doing, I don't think so that we can, make it. But I hope that after nung ating Philippine statement po, together with all of the NGOs here, I hope that the CCC will listen to us, to our concerns, and they will really, take actions, bold actions, proactive actions, and actions na pro-people, not just an interest of someone who wants to, benefit from these things. Maraming salamat po.
Salamat, Jeff. Does Natasha or Isabella want to answer it?
I can share something. Well, okay, the first time I actually heard about the CCC or the work that they were doing was actually quite recent. It was over, like, the actual work that they were doing. I only learned about it over the quarantine. Even if I've been in kind of this, like, trying to really understand climate policy for a while, this was the first time I actually tried to understand what the government is doing as well, because I was one of those that was kind of prone to being very, like, trying to stay away to keep, like, sane. And I feel like a lot of people my age as well try to do that, and it's very risky to kind of get involved with government, and we all know that. So I tried to kind of see the different processes and how it was being done, and obviously I feel like a lot of us young people are quite, like, disappointed to an extent. But what I found different was, unlike in other countries, I feel like talking to their government takes, like, a while, like a long process. Same with ours. But one thing that I found, like, that was very nice about the CCC was that with just sending them an email, they actually replied, because there was a point where, as part of also the climate reality project, I saw that the NDCs, they were going through, like, as what Jeff was mentioning, the multi-stakeholder consultation. And so when I heard about that, I decided to join in. And when I saw the first draft of the NDC, I was, like, completely shocked, because when I was reading it, there was, again, no mention of young people, no mention of indigenous people, no mention of women, no mention of anything to do with the forestry sector, no mention of natural carbon sequestration systems. And it was kind of like, I feel like personally, if I submitted a paper like that to, like, my climate change prof, he would really be like, what are you doing? Because I feel like so many people here in the Philippines are already here when it comes to climate knowledge, and yet our government is still all the way behind. And so I feel like we somehow have, like, even if we know that they have the duty to really, they need to do it, we kind of have to help them. And I feel like that's really the only way we'll move forward. And so what I ended up doing personally one night, I researched on all the different NDCs from all the other countries. I think I read over 25 papers, just trying to understand like the system of it all. Because when I saw ours, it was like, I think 4 pages, and other countries had like 24 pages. So I was trying to understand like the system. And I ended up reaching out to the CCC asking, like, these were my comments. I successfully kind of sent them my comments on why we should include Indigenous people, women, and youth in the conversation. So in the next draft they sent, they did insert the wording, but in the context of the sector, it still wasn't there. So I feel like what happens with like the CCC or any government process is that it gets cut short. Terms, and same thing with our laws, same thing with our policies. It always gets cut short with the first word and never completes the sentence. So I feel like that's where us as like NGOs and young people and people that are willing to get involved, that's what we have to do. We have to complete the sentence. We have to finish the book for them. And even if it pains us to do so, it's the only way really will move forward. So rather than being super like afraid, I guess, that I kind of realized over the quarantine that we have to just try to understand that I feel like their perspective is just lacking in kind of like clarity. And that's what we have to give them. Like, even if it's tiring, that's the only way really will reach progress. It's kind of understanding something from another person's point of view. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, that's nice. I like that. We have to complete the sentence.
Yeah.
Actually, we need to complete the story. We have, if we don't, if we end up in mid-sentence, well, maybe that's when irreversible climate change happens, then we are forced to stop at mid-sentence. And we don't want to do that. So I'm so glad that we have our young people who are going to, into the future, taking this into their hands. So we still have some time. Carlo, do you want to share some experiences?
You know, there are phrases in the chat box that I would like to read for our speakers to hear.
Yes.
Let me read. These kids are amazing. Salamat sa ating mga kabataan. I'm so proud of you.
Yes, yes.
You are great. Congratulations. The Tanhutko sisters, you remind me of Greta Thunberg. You are the Filipino version of this great girl. Keep going. Thank you to our youth for your passion and dedication.
Okay. I know, Carlo, you started in human rights too. Your activism, di ba?
Yes, that's right.
Because it was called for at that time. It was martial law, right?
Towards the end of martial law.
Okay.
So first,
Towards the end,
job,
yes, yes. That's
yeah,
also when I started, towards the end.
volunteer. My
Huh?
first job as a volunteer for human rights was, I think I was only 17 or 18 at that time, and my first job was to document human rights abuses. Nagbibilang ako ng mga namamatay, mga massacre,
Yes.
mga salvaging.
Okay.
Yes, that's how I started.
Yes, pero hindi ba? I heard something kanina. I think it was Mitzi. She was saying that, she was talking to this lumad ba? Tapos parang if you push me to the limit, we have to fight back. So I think the government has not learned that hindi nadadala sa takot yung mga tao.
I agree
Diba?
with you.
We get really scared, but then it firms up our conviction all the more that we have to fight back. Actually, it was the abuses, human rights abuses, that opened my eyes to the need to do something. So, takot ka pero gagawin mo kasi kailangan eh. Hindi mo siya masikmura. So I think this is what's happening now with the environment defenders, no? Sabi nga ni Mitzi, pag namulat ka, kasalanan pag pumikit ka ulit. At saka actually, mahirap pumikit ulit. Once namulat ka na, para may toothpick na hindi mo na siya maipikit. No? Because even if you close your eyes, it's in your brain, it's in your head. And if you've got a heart, it won't stop beating para dun sa advocacy mo. So, scaring people is not the answer, you know. I remember.
Will rise up.
What?
More people will rise up. More
That's
people
right.
will
That's
more
right.
do something.
Yes. So, sana maintindihan yun ng mga authorities at huwag na nilang i-harass yung ating mga environmental defenders. No?
You know, these people did not learn from history. That kind of strategy
yes.
does not work at all.
Oh, sometimes you wonder if they have brains.
Only ignite more the passion of people.
That's right. You know. So I'm so glad to hear that there will be a defender of the defenders. Importante yon. Like the human rights before, I was part of the organization that defended. No? So in the middle of the night, I would receive a call and I would go out and go around the detention centers looking for people they arrested just so they will not disappear. Pag wala kasing naghahanap, pwedeng ma-disappear na yon. Pero once may naghanap, medyo, oops, ilag sila. Kasi may naghahanap. So, at the drop of a hat, I would go out, you know, and roam the detention centers looking for people. Pero may kasama naman ako mga madre, mga ganon. So, there was safety in numbers.
I think we lost Marie. Marie? Anyway, while waiting for Marie to come back, let me read this comment from David. Remember that we are part of government in principle, since democracy is a government of the people, by the people, and not for the people, and not for the people, and not of the people, by BUY the people, and pour the people. Thanks, David. But you know, in Green Convergence, we recognize the importance of working with the government as much as possible. Okay, so Marie. I think we don't have questions anymore, and we don't have comments.
Marie, you're muted. Marie is muted.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I disappeared for a while eh. I don't know, nag-disconnect ako eh. So that's why maybe I'm muted. Anyway, tama ka. There are no more questions. Alam mo, ang bibilis kasi nila eh. Itong young people, ang bibilis nila magsalita. So natapos nila kagad. Na-cover nila ang dami-dami in such a short while. No? Hindi ba? Ang galing-galing nila talaga. So anyway, we are now going to wrap up today's session. And I just want to say that I'm very, very thankful to Mitzi, to Natasha, Isabella, and Jeff for inspiring us older people, not much older, but older, to keep on fighting for our environment. No? Kasi kung minsan nakakapagod, but you know, when you're given this kind of inspiration, like I said kanina, siguro I'll be smiling for a whole week, no? Na ang gagaling ng mga bata natin, there's hope for the future. When I used to go to the COP negotiations, I felt so bad that the young people were saying, I don't want to have children because why would I want to bear children tapos and then they will just have a very bleak future, very difficult, etc. So parang talo na, di ba? But this gives me hope, and this gives me hope that my 4-year-old grandson, who will be 34 years old in 30 years, will have a nice life after all. Yun. Thank you very much. We had a very, very good pool of speakers. Thank you. And thank you for the participants. Thank you for joining us today. Our next Kamayan will be on the 19th of March, 19th again. No? This will be our 31st anniversary celebration. And so today, the one who will give the closing remarks is my co-moderator, Dr. Carlo Garcia, as Vice President of Green Convergence. Carlo?
Yeah, I have a new role today, but just for today. Okay, as what Dr. Nina said in her opening remarks, gone are the days when the old only sees the young and not listened to. Gone are the days when the old teaches the young. Gone are the days when the old leads the young. We are now in an era where we teach and yes, where we teach each other and where we both lead each other towards change. While it is true that young people have so much to learn from us old people, I already consider myself old. It's also true that we have a lot to learn from the young, and we must listen to the young. Pope Francis said, and I quote, future generations stand to inherit a greatly spoiled world. Our children and grandchildren should not have to pay the cost of our generation's irresponsibility. Indeed, as is becoming increasingly clear, young people are calling for change. These words from the pontiff reminded me of what Greta Thunberg said when she delivered a speech in the UN Climate Action Summit in 2019. She was only 16 then, and I quote, people are suffering, people are dying, the entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all of you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you? You are failing us, but the young people are starting to understand your betrayal. The eyes of all future generations are upon you. And if you choose to fail us, I say, we will never forgive you. We will not let you get away with this. Right here, right now, is where we draw the line. The world is waking up and change is coming whether you like it or not. End of the quote. Some were offended by those compelling words from a 16-year-old girl, but most people, including myself, and I'm so sure, including all of you here, were challenged and inspired. Today, we were again challenged and inspired by our young speakers. Thank you, Mitzi, Natasha, Isabella, and Jeff. And I would like to include Amaris. Your narratives were fascinating and heartwarming. Indeed, there is hope for all of us. Marie, you're correct. There is hope, and a better future awaits us. And at the heart of their collective message lies the value of intergenerational justice. That is, to do unconditionally our present day duty for the benefit of forthcoming generations. On behalf of our President, Dr. Angelina Galang, the members of the Board of Trustees, including you, Marie, of course, our Executive Director and staff, allow me to thank you all for being here today. Thank you for inspiring us as well.
Thank you, Carlo. Reminder, please do not go yet. We are going to have our turn on your video. We're going to have our souvenir shot for this session. Shafi, tell us when you're ready to take the shots.
All right, we'll just wait for the others to turn on their videos. While waiting, may I remind those who request for an e-certificate that we will first be sending a short evaluation form. After filling this out, you will receive your e-certificate. The Green Convergence Secretariat will be sending this either today or tomorrow. So just please wait for this email. All right, I think if Mitzi is still there, so we can take a picture with our speakers. All right, there. All right. I think we can take our picture now.
Okay.
Okay. On the count of three, I'll take three batches. So 1, 2, 3. Next picture. 1, 2, 3. And last. 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Shafi.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
God bless.
Bye-bye. See you next time.
Thank you po. Maraming salamat.